Hey, community, good to see you guys again. I know that's a deep statement as far as seeing you guys, but we're just so excited to be here and bring you another installation of community conversation. This platform is so important where we have people in our community and everybody have access to this. And this is something that we're really trying to promote and do where the voices can be heard. And a lot of time engaging our young people, older people, it doesn't matter. Everyone is valued, everyone has worth, and all we're trying to do is see how we can stop the confusion and then have some real conversation. I got a beautiful, beautiful friend here today that I really respect. Again, he's a phenomenal and amazing young man. You know, I met him years ago. One thing that I really love about him, he has shown to be committed to our community. In many places and in many situations where a lot of people talk, this brother does. And so I just, without any further ado, I want to bring Mr. Greg Rowan, right? Rowan. Now that's terrible. I didn't know his proper last name. Mr. Greg Rowan. Well, thank you for coming today.
Well, thank you
to our community conversation.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Showed up early.
Okay.
And he came with several pieces of liquids. He didn't share with none of us. You know what I mean? I think it's coffee and water. But anyway, so tell us a little bit about you and who are you?
Who am I?
Yes, sir.
Well, again, my name is Greg Rowan, and I pastor a church here in the Flint area. I was born in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan and then decided I needed people. Okay. It was the one thing in the Upper Peninsula that seemed to have a shortage of people. Yes. Okay. So I decided that I was going to leave that life behind. And so I burned that Mackinac Bridge in my rear view mirror as I went over. I was never going back.
Wow.
And I ended up going to college.
Okay. What college is it?
It's called Olivet College, which is south of Lansing.
I had a friend go there for mortuary science.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. I didn't know they offered that.
Back in the 70s, I think.
Yeah. And in those days, I wasn't particularly interested in the academics, but I was interested in discovering a whole new world.
Okay.
Or Greg. But after that, I ended up going to North Carolina, transferring schools, ended up in a Bible school there before moving to Georgia, Atlanta area.
What was it like in the Carolinas? And about how old were you when you were there?
I went to Olivet for 2 years, I believe it was. So my third year of college, they were beautiful. Okay. It was the most beautiful city I'd ever seen. Charlotte, North Carolina. It was really wonderful.
I have family down there. That's
Do you? Oh, it's a beautiful place. And then from there, I was 2 years there before going to Atlanta, Georgia, to serve as a music minister in a church that was just starting up in the northern suburbs of Atlanta.
Okay.
And I did that for a couple of years.
Now, when you say the northern suburbs, is that up by Beaufort? Or?
No. Atlanta in those days didn't extend quite that far.
Okay.
It's Dunwoody.
Oh, okay. I've been there.
Okay,
yes,
sure.
Sir. Yeah. Okay.
Just outside the perimeter, they call it, 285.
Yes, sir.
And so I did that.
So were you down there in Atlanta when there was no expressways like here now?
Oh my goodness. I was there when they were building it.
Whoa.
Okay. Yeah, that was a whole life lesson in itself because I lived in the Dunwoody area. Well, not Dunwoody, it was Norcross, which is east of that. And then I had to work right downtown.
Whoa.
I mean, right downtown.
Oh, I know that had to be.
It was, it was a commute.
Oh man, okay.
You had to listen to the radio in those days to figure out whether your exit was on the right side of the expressway or the left because they were changing everything in the road. 2 lanes, it's now 16. So anyway, it was but that's traffic. Yeah, I'm still not over it.
Yeah, I imagine. Man.
Still don't miss it.
Listen,
but I loved Atlanta.
Yeah, really. That's very traumatic that even now, that traffic down there is unacceptable.
Unacceptable.
The traffic in Atlanta right now is unacceptable, bro. I was about a couple of years ago before the pandemic. I was on my motorcycle down there. They had a semi that on 20. Right down there by the loop, 85, 75, 285.
And I
Okay,
worked within walking distance of that intersection.
wow. Well, what happened was semi broke down. It was 110 degrees.
Mhm.
On my motorcycle, I had to get off my motorcycle and leave because the semi truck had jackknifed and was out there 4 hours, man. The traffic just stopped.
That's Atlanta.
That's Atlanta.
Yeah.
Go ahead. So you were
So I was there,
music teacher?
music teacher.
You said you was music minister?
That's true, in a church that was
Okay.
starting up. I did that for a couple of years before I ended up over on the west side of Atlanta, working for a woman who was ministering in the projects of the western side of Atlanta. I was the only white guy there,
Wow.
and it was a wonderful
Now,
experience.
is that by Clark, Atlanta? Is that by Spelman? Or is that by College Park? You say when the project, so is that
This would
Vine
be
City?
the western portion.
The western
Yeah,
portion?
uh-huh.
Okay, so I'm looking at the
So
west.
if you could be
West from
I-20,
downtown?
correct.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that is over by that, it used to be the stadium over that way, right?
Well, west of that even.
Oh, west of that even?
Well, quite near I-20.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I worked with a church there for a couple of years.
So how was that integration as far as you working and you was the predominantly, white guy there? How was the reception?
To be blunt, from a musical standpoint, they all had to learn how to sing white because I couldn't play black.
Okay then, my
So-
man, you say. And this church had to be integrated, right? Or
No, I was the only white guy there.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, it was wonderful. Wonderful.
That's awesome.
And I had a lot of friends that were involved in different ministries there.
Okay.
That were doing some wonderful things within their sphere
Okay.
but it was a wonderful experience for me. I really enjoyed it.
Wow. So that's where you kind of hone your chops as far as working in the community and really believing in the community or really, seeing some of the conditions in the community. So that's somehow you got some of your foundation, right?
Without realizing it, yes.
Okay.
Yes. I didn't purpose to do that.
Oh, wow.
I just, loving people, and there were people, they had a need, and so I said, well, if you can use me, go ahead.
My man.
And so we did.
Now, when you say that, did that come from your parents? I mean, how did that happen to grow inside of you? Because that's what we're trying to encourage our community. And when you talk about, what bursts inside of us to have us to get engaged and not be walking around with fear. So was that part of your upbringing?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I had a very, very sheltered upbringing.
Okay.
I had to stay very, very close to home. Remember how we talked about one of the things I wanted to do was be around people?
Yeah.
Well, that's part of it because
Okay.
I was very lonely as a child. But there came a defining moment in my life where I met Jesus Christ as my
Okay.
Savior,
Okay.
and things changed for me. They
Wow.
radically, right
Okay.
to the root, to the foundation.
Look at that.
And so what was a byproduct, if I can use that term, was love.
Really?
And a love for people. And when I
Okay.
saw people that had need, I felt a responsibility to address that
Wow.
in as much as I could.
That's
So,
beautiful. Yeah.
so that's kind of where it started.
Okay.
Sure.
And by how old were you when that started? I mean, by how old would you say you were when you had that revelation and then that epiphany with your relationship with Jesus Christ?
Okay. That came in stages, but the most defining moment I can think of is that period when I left Olivet College in Michigan to go to ministry school in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then and really going to the South, that's a different kind of mindset in itself too, right?
It really is.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Both Charlotte and Atlanta are melting pot cities.
Mm-hmm.
So you get a lot of different kinds of things, and that was good for me.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
Okay. Well, good. Well, moving on, and you say after that, then you were there for several years, then you made it back to Florida.
Not quite.
Not quite.
Not
Oh,
quite.
look at this
I met
story.
me a lady, I did.
Oh,
Yes.
met me a lady.
Yes,
Oh,
I did.
look at that.
Uh-huh. And that would be in Atlanta.
Okay.
And so we were in that season of life where we were trying to examine, what are we going to do with our lives? And so there were lots of different options. Several doors were closing,
Okay.
and we weren't sure what to do. Now she's an Atlanta girl.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Through and through?
Sorry?
I say through and through.
Through and through.
My man.
She's
All right,
the
then.
peach.
She's a peach.
So
Holla.
we got married in December
Okay.
of 1987.
Okay.
We took a fabulous honeymoon
Okay.
in Florida
Oh, shit.
on the beach, 10th floor condominium. It was beautiful.
Rolling it out.
Uh-huh. And then we moved to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan from our honeymoon, and that would be in December.
Whoa.
The end of, so there was a shift that happened
That
with
was
us.
a big shit.
Oh, yes.
And the snow was up to here, right?
And just about.
Whoa.
Just
Has she ever
about.
seen snow before?
Well, I think she might have seen it, but when you're in Atlanta and it snows, it's gone by noon.
Dust, little specks.
Yeah, well, they get a little more than that.
Okay.
People drive crazy and everybody gets in a wreck and they get, you go blizzard shopping. They call it.
Blizzard shopping.
But anyway, we moved to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan to pastor our first church.
Wow.
I was there 7 years before moving to the Flint area to serve my uncle at Judson Baptist Church, is where I am now.
Okay.
And after being in ministry 7 years, I thought, well, now I know what questions to ask. So if I could go and work for him for a year, then I feel like that would have been a good thing, because I was floundering really, as a young man does.
Yeah, not
what do
what I do. Yeah, okay.
I had to work out those things about how I wanted to do what I wanted to do,
Good,
that sort of thing. So
Right.
yeah, so I've been here ever since.
Okay,
Sure.
okay. Well, that's awesome. And so, because I know a little bit about the work that you are doing presently, tell us a little bit about, what you do and how you came to start working with some of the young men that you're working with, and really being bold to really care, and then trying to work, I guess, cross-culture with people and bringing people together that normally wouldn't even sit down with another person, especially another person of color. So you tell us a little bit about that and some of the stuff you're doing now.
What am I doing now?
Yeah, because now you are the pastor, the head pastor. Right?
I am.
Okay.
Yes.
So when did you become head pastor?
If you subtract 7 years off of it, I was
out of
what, 23 maybe years.
Out of jail? When you came for your uncle?
I would say it's been about 20 years that I've been the pastor.
So you did apprenticeship under your uncle?
For 7 years.
Okay.
It was supposed to be a year, turned into 7. He retired. I became the senior pastor.
My man. So again, and that's something, again, how important that mentorship is, how that is the foundation of culture, period. And so often a lot of young people are not allowed those opportunities to work in it can be art, man, it can be music, it can be just a plethora of different things, when we should have a community that, as you just said, you were floundering. And a lot of our young people do that. They're just trying to find, what is the gift inside of them? Now, when they're exposed to certain things, then they're able to latch on because they got people around that's helping to guide. When you are constantly struggling just to eat, a lot of times you don't have those opportunities to really find out what your talent is. So I'm proud that this happened for you. So just, fall right into, 7 years, you got in there, you came in for 1 year, you did 7 years, now you're the lead pastor. What did you see, especially out there, how you could really make a difference?
Well, so many of the things that have substance in my life, I didn't see it coming. In fact, I didn't see it until after I'd been in it for a while.
Okay.
True. We went on a missions trip to Mexico, and we stopped in South Texas. And we served a church there by going into the projects there, whatever their version of the projects are. And this whole team was taken with that kind of ministry. People were doing piggyback rides and helping kids learn how to ride bikes and doing vacation Bible school things. And they just got into their lives.
Okay.
And it was a beautiful, beautiful thing. So much that we were changed as much as any of those children were.
Okay.
Well, on our way back to Michigan, we got to the Michigan state line. And I had this thought, you guys, we don't have to go 3,000 miles just to do that kind of thing. We've got this going on in our own backyard.
Yeah.
So what do you think if we were to start a ministry to children near us? And unanimously, the decision was made, yes, let's do that.
Okay.
So in my, rose-colored glasses world, we thought we'd go ahead and pass out some flyers.
Okay.
And we were thinking, maybe if we get 8 or 10 kids to add to our Wednesday night ministry, that would be a great thing. Well, 40 kids showed up to come.
40.
40.
Look at that.
We were not prepared. We weren't prepared for the number of kids, and we weren't prepared for the behavior issues that we faced.
Okay.
The kids got off the bus and started throwing rocks at all the cars and the people that going to church and parking. I'm telling you, it was crowd control.
Okay.
And
you say wilding out.
And we got done with it. It was like, oh, we're exhausted. This isn't anything like Texas.
Yeah.
Well, we better gear up because next Wednesday's coming.
Yeah. Okay. Y'all open the door.
Oh, we did. And so because the door was open, it was unthinkable to shut it.
Okay.
It was horrible. I can't say any other word except it was horrible. And I figured one of us is going to shift. You're either coming over to my side, but I'm not going over to your side.
Right.
So this is just how it's going to be. So we stuck with it.
Okay.
We did think it wisdom to say, okay, hold up. Maybe what we'll do is to build a ministry exclusively around the needs of some of these young men or children.
Okay.
At that point, it was men. It was boys and girls.
Okay.
But those boys and girls grew up, and we had a significant thing happen probably years into this because it was tough for a long time. And when I say tough, I mean it was tough.
Okay.
The way I'm wired, I like structure, I like discipline, I like authority, and those were things that weren't in our experience in that. But we had a very, very gifted teacher that came alongside. Her name was Sonia Ward. Okay. And she, just about from the first moment she showed up, she instinctively knew how to reach beyond things I didn't know how to reach beyond. Okay. And things just, I'm going to say, instantly shifted.
Now, so you saying things shifted instantly with the behavior of the young people because of this young lady?
Yes, I am.
Now, if you can point out what was the shift, and I'm just thinking, was it her ability not to be afraid like the kids?
None of us were afraid.
Okay, so was it a behavior pattern where she may have been hugging the kids a little more?
Absolutely. Hugging the kids more often. She seemed to be able to look through some of the insanity was a good word for, I would say that. And she would love them and hug them and see who they were through their behavior. Yeah. Whereas I did not have that ability. Okay. I'm just right. I had the tenacity, but I didn't have the gift set. Part of my ministry is to find people who are supposed to do their ministry and to provide a place for them to do that. Okay. So she was well suited for that. She was the granny, and she would cook them these wonderful meals and let them play basketball because that was their love. And we would teach them a Bible lesson, and pretty soon these young people were growing up. And we could see some real shift and some change in their lives.
Right on.
And that was worth all the years of, in your word, insanity. Just because knowing that you're making a difference is a really important thing.
Now, when you say that about, cultural behavior, because when it's not structured, like you say, you come from being structured, and then in certain demographics, you have people that are in these different housing environments, and with the breakdown or the stratification of income, then it does produce an element of insanity, because people, and generally, there's a difference between living and surviving.
Clearly, absolutely.
And so when you say about you, and I love how you use the term, is that you are almost like a headhunter. So you say you hunt heads or people, providing a space for them to do their ministry, because their ministry is aligned with God. And because you have the space, God is using their talents to help these people that are struggling to get on the path of some kind of normalcy.
Whatever that is.
Whatever that is.
Right.
That can look
I would
different.
say that's very...
That can look different in many ways.
Absolutely.
Even when you're just thinking about, a person, being poor, and, then starting to, take advantage of, even if you're a 12th grader and can't read. If you're saying, I'm going to start, being honest that I can't read, and I'm going to ask you to help me, and then help me get into a little factory, maybe, I can work good with my hands, but I'm not as intelligent, and then you're not looking down on me, minimizing me, or making me feel even worse about my condition. And I think that's very, very important. And I've been in your environment, and I've seen, some of the smiles, and because kids keep showing up. So that means you're doing something right.
Hallelujah.
Real talk. You know what I mean? That's what I'm really proud of you. Because on the flip side of what you do, I know I do a lot of mentoring around the community.
Yes, you
in
do.
School, but I think that your tenacity and what you have brought to the table, and why, and I gotta ask you this, it's not a loaded question, but why that in what you have been doing for so long has not really manifested itself in the Flint community at other churches?
I don't know. It's expensive.
Okay.
And I don't mean money.
Time.
I mean, it's more than time. When you show up, you have to be prepared to remove barriers. And a lot of what we do is to identify that there are barriers. You don't have a driver's license, you are at a very big disadvantage. We took an offering in our church in order to provide money for any young person who would accept the challenge to go through driver's training and to get their driver's license, because you need that.
That's big.
So, and to be forthright, I thought that young men would flock to that opportunity. What a way is made for my driver's license. We did not get even one. No, that's not true. Maybe we got one or two.
Okay.
Now, lots said they wanted to, but I don't quite understand why they didn't step up to the challenge, even though that offer was repeated. But you need a driver's license in this day and age in order to be able to get a job. And
Yes, and then personal ID is one of the biggest things.
Absolutely.
But, so you can know, why many of them didn't step up is because first, they don't feel that they are valued or that they are worthy to even do that, because they have been broken. So we live, and you're dealing with people that are broken. And a lot of times, even when you provide it for me, I'm still broken. I'm really still broken, because even after leaving church or leaving Wednesday service or what have you, I got to go back to these projects, or I got to go back to my poor environment, right? So I'm with people that are poor. I'm socializing with a certain mindset. So that certain mindset has a tendency to be group thinking. And especially if you step up and say, well, I want my license, then I'll be talked about or ridiculed in many aspects. it's almost like a defeatist type of thing. And that's a culture
It's
thing.
set up against.
Yeah. And that has to be broken.
True.
See, that really has to be broken because it doesn't make sense, first of all.
No,
It really doesn't make sense.
no.
But that's why I'm just proud of you. And I think that's why I was asking you the question about why is it somewhat duplicated or going on in other parts of our city when you have people with ministries that does have some income, that has people that are, putting into the coffers or paying their tithes and all those kind of things. And most often they just have big buildings, but really no work is being done there.
Money doesn't fix it. It doesn't matter how much money you have. The money doesn't fix the problem. It's going to have to be people who are willing to give of themselves to be someone who can help with the fixing process.
Wow.
And it's a process.
Wow.
And you have to be able to accept a person for where they are.
Where they are.
And you have to look past where they are to see the person who they are.
Wow.
And then love them.
Wow.
We had one young man
That's
in
big.
particular who lived in fear every day, waking up, going to school, and he was not thriving. He went to he did not prefer the things that he saw in the Flint schools.
Okay.
He didn't prefer that.
My man.
And so I said to him, well, why don't you come live with us?
Okay.
And then we don't live in that district.
Yeah.
And we can go ahead and, anyway, all that is to say, to make the long story short, when he was able, he did come to live with us. He wasn't able to attend this school because he was too far behind to be able to catch up to graduate. But he did do an alternative education program.
Okay.
I forget the name of it, but anyway, we had to get an ID. We had to be about, okay, you need a driver's license.
Yeah.
And you need to get yourself in school.
Yeah.
So he was, up in our house with all the rest of the kids. He's a son to me.
Yeah.
And so he got his little permit, and so he drove me to his school every morning, and he drove me home every afternoon.
That's so wonderful.
And so he thrived in that environment.
Look at that.
And so he's doing well today. I'm
Yeah.
happy to say, I just smile
Yeah.
for that investment, but that's an expensive thing.
Okay.
In terms of not money. It never takes a lot of money, but it takes the people who are willing to love a person through wherever they are to the place where they want to go.
And that's so beautiful. I always say the children spell love Time. And I
True.
think that's a profound statement when you really look at everything you just said, because we live in a society that's so caught up on me.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't have time for you.
Right.
And especially, like you said, you are already 3 or 4 grades behind. You can't read.
Yeah.
Listen here. I even look at you as trash. In a lot of situations, that's how we define one another. And I think that don't have anything to do with God. That's not what God wants.
He that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love.
Look at it.
And you can do that in any church.
Come on.
It's not what church do you attend, or how many times do you attend that church. Do you love?
That's awesome. Now, just what you just said is part of my next question, because that right there, what you said about having a young man come in and live with you guys, is solution-based.
Yes.
And one of the things I wanted to ask you about is, right now in our local community, what are some solutions that, talking to the audience, that you can share with our listening audience that they individually can really do that doesn't take, like you just said, $1 billion. But what can they do with the hands and the feet that they have and with the heart that they have? What are some solutions?
If I can answer your question by just speaking of a notable person I came to know.
Okay.
Her name is Net, and she lives in Evergreen, Regency.
Okay.
And she had seen all these children pass by her door, and she developed this heart for those children. She'd see them off to school, and they didn't have backpacks. She didn't have a lot of money, But she began to ask other people, hey, do you have a $10 bill or a 20? I'm going to go shopping because I don't want any other children that pass by my door to go to school without the appropriate supplies.
Yeah.
Well, that has turned into an amazing thing over
Really?
time.
Really?
Yes, she invited me to go.
Okay.
And so I said, well, sure, because we wanted to be involved in what they were doing.
Okay.
There were hundreds of people there. There were colleges that had representation there.
What?
There were businesses. The mayor of Flint at the time was there. There were all of these people that were mingling all on that one spot outside her door. There were hot dogs and chips, and
Look at that.
it was wonderful to see the hope.
Yeah.
And this was one person who was willing to think outside of her own box
Wow.
to do something that I think is marvelous.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so when we say that again, that's really so important as far as an example of somebody picking up the baton.
Sure.
Seeing a need.
Seeing the
addressing
need and addressing it however they can. I run into so many people who have a heart to do something,
Okay.
but they don't because they don't think they have enough money.
Wow.
So I have to depend on outside funding in order to do what I feel like I'm supposed to do. And you don't have to. Ministry doesn't cost a lot of money.
Okay, really?
It doesn't.
Really?
No.
Okay.
Throw out a bunch of hot dogs. What does that cost?
Okay.
Okay, buy a thing of ketchup and mustard.
Okay.
If you're really feeling flush, pick up an onion and dice it.
Yeah, okay.
What I'm saying is, and other people want to help,
Okay.
but just doing what you see before you
Mm-hmm.
is very, very important.
Okay.
Loving people. I also do work at one of the hospitals in the psychiatric unit.
Oh, really?
And I go there, several times a month, and I listen to what they're saying. And they're all saying the same thing. They're broken, as you said. And they need someone who's willing to listen to them. And they need hope. And hope, as I understand the word,
Mm-hmm.
is the anticipation of what you know is coming.
Okay.
And when you know that there is a way out of your circumstance,
Oh, wow.
then you can anticipate.
Yeah.
This is not always going to be this way.
Yeah.
If I do this and this and this, and I put those things together,
Mm-hmm.
then pretty soon the desired result will come.
Wow.
And it does.
That's awesome. Now, that's
Not
awesome.
to say that there aren't pitfalls
Right.
or problems or all kinds of snags. There are. But when you're tenacious
Mm-hmm.
and you just don't quit,
Mm-hmm.
if you don't give up, then there are blessings that will, the Bible says, follow you
Wow.
and overtake you.
Follow you and overtake you. Did you hear that, community? Follow you and overtake you. And I think that if anything is being said today, and I'm just proud of you, Mr. G, is that so often hear what he just said is just taking up the baton or the mantle where you are and just believe that it will manifest itself, but also understanding that it's not going to be no picnic. It's not going to just be something that's going to be laid out for you. And again, going through those challenges, I really believe that even through failure and struggle, it makes us stronger. But when you can do it with someone, see, and like you just said about at the hospital, listening. So often, a lot of people just want to be heard.
It's so true.
Even with all the technology we got now, a lot of people just want to be heard.
They want someone next to them with skin that will affirm them, that will hear what they have to say and count what their thought valuable. And the soul of that person being seen and being loved. It's life-changing.
Wow.
And that doesn't cost money.
Man. And that's something that, we have to really, really, really be stewards of. We really, and like yourself and duplicating yourself and the words that's going to go out over this platform, again, it's so important that we really, really, really try to work to encourage and also be committed to being that example.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of times, as you said, the picture, again, as they said, eat an elephant one bite at a time. You know what I mean? And so how do you sometime in your ministry, how do you recharge yourself? How are some things that you do to recharge yourself, to re-engage? Because I know it can be taxing. So what are some things you use, that help keep you, upright and centered?
Well, that's a great question.
Okay, well, I'm glad I asked
I'm
it.
glad you did too. Let me think about it a second.
Okay.
I live life from one joy to the next.
Ooh, one joy to the next.
Not
Look at
to
that.
say that my life is perfect or without struggle.
Mm.
I'm not saying that. But there is always something to see that's good and that is joy-giving in what you're doing.
Mm.
So it is perspective. If you look at something and you see the problems,
Mm-hmm.
well, that kind of is a joy sucker,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to, I'm sorry. But if you can look at that and say that you see the worth and value of why you're doing what you're doing, and knowing that it will produce the result over time, then that brings life and that brings joy. So I have a wonderful life. I'll do the ministry on Thursday that we were talking about, and then
Okay.
maybe I'll go and help somebody with a practical thing at their house. We have some single moms at our church, and they have
Okay.
needs from time to time. And
Okay.
I might be up on a roof replacing shingles, or I might be under a lawnmower trying to figure out what to get that. So there's that part of life.
Okay.
People always seem to need a ride here and there. Plus, I go back and forth up to the Upper Peninsula often. And that's
Often?
often.
Really? I
Yeah.
thought you said you would never go back.
I did, and I meant it when I said it. Oh, I was to my toes, I meant it.
Are you serious?
And it was one of those many things in life that I had to say, well, okay, maybe I was a little off on that one.
Okay. So what are you doing up across the Mackinac?
What am I doing? Well, my wife and I own property up there. We lived there for 7 years, and so
Okay.
we go up there regularly because it's a great place. We pastored our church there, and there's always maintenance and things that have to be
Now,
done.
when you say property, now I'm thinking, is there a cabin on the lake with all these beautiful trees and swamp over here? Is that what your property look like?
No, not our property.
That's what we envision. Because I can't wait to go and spend the night. So go
And
ahead.
I envision that too. But when we were pastoring a church there was a young single mom in our church, and she lived in a house, and the house really should have been condemned. There was raw sewage in the basement because of a broken sewer line. Just all kinds of things going through it. And she had an out-of-town landlord. And anyhow, he didn't address any of the problems. And so I offered to buy the house and to fix it so that she'd have a nice place to live. And so that's kind of how that started. We purchased a home.
Wow.
It's now being used. All of this is by God's grace. I'm not bragging, but it's now used as a woman's shelter.
It's about flowers. See, one thing that we got to listen. Let me stop you right here.
Can I stop you for a second?
Okay.
And you don't do that on somebody's podcast.
Okay.
And I just did. I broke all the rules. The point that I want to make is that you can take your little and you can see what God can do with your little if you will give it to him. That was my point. We were able to purchase that on our very, very meager income at that point and put sweat in equity into that house. And it's now being used all these years later, 30 years later, for women who are either battered or coming out of jail and need a fresh start. And so there are mentors and things. And my wife and I get to smile, foreseeing over time how God has used the little that we gave in order to produce good now. Yeah. That was my point.
Oh, no.
I wasn't trying to say anything except.
No, that's an excellent point, because all I wanted to just, was going to stop you about and just explain to you what I had an epiphany or just an idea. So often, we go to when people are transitioning and they say all these things about people. You know, they did this, they did that, blah, blah, blah. And what I was thinking is, why can't we, it's not bragging, but why can't we stay and give one another flowers now? Why can't you hear me and others say, Dr. G, we just believe that you're just doing such a wonderful job. We're proud of you, and just cover you with roses and just give you so much praise. And not saying that, you know, it's just trying to brown nose you, but sincerely saying, listen here, man, I see you, and what I see you doing, I'm not hating on it, I'm not jealous. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of your wife. I'm proud of your commitment. And I think if more of us would take the approach to start shining and shining other people, because we live in a society now that's just so microwave. Everyone is either chasing a bag, chasing an identity. I got to do or be or this, you know, before I can even think about helping. And like you just said, what little you have can be overwhelming for someone else. What little time you have to just sit and talk to me, you don't even know me, but you sit and talk to me, how that could change my life. I mean, just that little. And that's what I'm trying to say. I just want to say, we are really trying to articulate honoring people, praising people while they're here. And like you, and I love what you're saying, just because a person may be at this, that's not the sum total of that person. There's something out there. That's not who they are.
No.
I think that's awesome, man. If anything we're learning today is so often we just get stuck in the brokenness, and sometimes we come with our own little baggage, and why you this, why your parents, why, as opposed to saying, that's not who they are.
Yeah.
Wow.
And if we look,
Mm-hmm.
if we'll just take a moment to look, we can see
Wow.
who that person is.
Look at that.
And we can address them according to that. Most of the time, they don't know who they are.
Isn't that good?
And it takes someone who's willing to look and see,
Wow.
and then pull that out.
That's so awesome, because most of the time they don't know.
No.
That's critical. You know, that's critical, because back to this me, this want. I gotta have, and really don't even know what you gotta have, but I gotta have it, and I gotta have it now, right?
Right.
You know.
Right. Yeah.
So that is just really, really incredible. So, and you say you go up to the Upper Peninsula, and you know it's running in over 30 years. If there's anything that you could say about that being part of your ministry, and you saying it, and I asked you the question of what fills you up, and you share with us what fills you up. That started, and you were able to get the property, and it is flourishing. What is some things that you see in people that is pretty much the same when you're dealing with people from Upper Peninsula, people from the surrounding area of Flint? What is just some basic needs and concerns that we all have that are collective, that we are not so different from one another? Because we live in a society that wants to separate us, number one. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying, would you articulate, especially being a young white man, how is it that we are so similar that we got to even start purging from ourselves a lot of this cultural conditioning that's continues to warp our thinking?
I am so happy to hear you say those words.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you.
It's like the 4th of July going
on.
No, it is too.
It's popping off.
Because all of us come from our particular place, and we don't seem to have the eyes to see beyond our own context. And we need to develop the ability to see. And with the truth of the statement, just because I think it doesn't make it so. I can be wrong, or my perception can be wrong, or my thoughts can be wrong, or my ways. All of those I have to hold loosely, because there is a truth that is truth all the way through. And that we need to find out what that is. And then we need to live according to that.
That's awesome. That is really awesome. I mean, that right there puts it in a nutshell. I think the application of really living our lives through those words is the testimony.
I think you're right.
Because that action, like you say, because so often we are always looking for, you to fail. Or you come to me and you doing this righteous work, you got to have an agenda. You know what I mean?
I do. I absolutely do. But it's not a hidden agenda.
It's not a hidden, but
I
like
want
I
to
said,
see things better.
there you go.
And that is my agenda.
And I think that's something that we also should really highlight in our community when we're dealing with each other.
Mm-hmm.
I got an agenda
I do.
to change this condition.
Right.
And I'm going to be a change agent. And like you said, hold your head up high. And don't be looking down. Don't be looking beat up.
Right.
Because I think, like you said, perception without challenge become a reality. And that's so important, man. Especially when we think about, the economy and how so many people are broken because of the economy. And again, they get locked and stuck in a place that they don't want to be in, first of all. But because of generations, they feel that they're hopeless, And so again, we just want to continue to highlight, and again, like I said earlier about being able to give each other's flowers and praise one another and brag on one another while we are here and not laying in our casket. I think that's very important. And that's one message I'd like to also continue to highlight with our listening audience. Another thing before we close out, Dr. G, is when you think about the goodness of all you've shared today, I'd like you to put in a nutshell about where do you see yourself maybe 2 years from now, your ministry, just some other general things, and then how can we really encourage other churches or ministries that are located in the heart of Flint to somewhat duplicate. See, what I'm trying to say is, I would love, because I've attended your place, and I've talked to some of the young men, but I would love, and I think it would be so valuable, man, if we had, like 10 or 15 or 20 of these activities taking place in the city weekly all around Flint.
Wouldn't that be absolutely fabulous?
Yes, man.
Fabulous.
Come on now.
Yeah.
Because that could be part of the solution, man.
It sure could.
Man.
And it's not in the organization of it. You can have 10 or 20 sites, but if you don't have the people that are willing to reach beyond themselves or where they're comfortable, and if you don't have people that are patient and tenacious, and if you, then it doesn't matter how many you have.
Okay.
Because it really is what you said, people that are willing to listen, people who are willing to look and see and then respond. What comes to mind is faith without works or a corresponding action is dead. We can talk about this, but until we truly do, that's when things happen. So I know you do all kinds of things across the city, and I know that you're an inspiration to people without you even realizing it. I'm sure that there are people that watch and they are inspired to do because they see that you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the same is true. I'm sure that you're not the only person, and I'm not the only person God's talking to.
Right.
I'm sure that He's talking to all kinds of people. And we have to work through our own stuff in order to become useful so that we can do what He wants us to do.
Right.
And the real joy in life is finding out what God wants us to do and loving people He loves.
Wow. Excellent. Well, on that note, again, but I do want to try to get you to say, so 2 years from now, 5 years from now, where do you think things will be? As far as your ministry, what are some goals that you wanting to achieve?
My goal, truly, is to know that what I'm doing is what I am supposed to be doing. I don't have a goal per se,
Okay,
that I want there to be this many people or this, I don't do that. Many people do, that's great. I don't do that because I've come to a place in my life where I've discovered that what I thought would be the thing to do is not the thing that I needed to be doing. There was a time in my life where I would not have considered ministry in the psychiatric unit,
No, no,
nor
that's
would I
right,
have
right,
considered, ministry to young Black men
right,
in our city. That wasn't in my line of thinking.
right.
You know what I'm saying? When
Yes, sir.
I answered the call.
Yeah,
So I want to hold things loose enough that things
Okay.
can shift and move as they need to. And I want to be someone who is following, as best I know,
mhm,
what I believe God is saying for me to do at the time.
that's
So
awesome.
I don't know.
Okay, no, that's
And
awesome.
I'm really happy with that.
Yeah, no, I think that is a wonderful answer and a wonderful place to be in. Because a lot of times when we constrain ourselves, we miss the blessings.
That's the truth.
That is awesome, man.
And for me, I can get off the track for thinking about what I think the track might be.
Might be, man, is that good? That's so good.
Anyway.
That's so good. Well,
Do the next thing.
do the next thing. And again, like you said, one thing that we want to really share with the community, it's just so important because I always like to say this. We are going to die. We can choose how to live, and even if you are retired, you still have life left. There's so much value in your life and what you can give to a young person. And even a young person, there's so much you can give to an older person. And those are some things that we've got to start working to cross. We got to start looking at one another differently. We got to start listening to each other differently. And those are some things that we're really going to be recycling. I know sometimes, parents, tell us over and over, stop this or do this, do that. And I think in our line of work, when you talk about repairing brokenness, what that may look like, it could be in many different rainbow colors as far as what a person really is going through, from, low self-esteem to, not feeling comfortable about how they look, how they walk, how they talk, just a whole plethora of things that's going on in the human existence. But we can simplify that, and you said it so eloquently. When we love and not judge, when we walk in foundational truth and not trying to hurt anyone, I think those are the qualities and the essence that you possess. And, we working to put you in a bottle, we're working to produce some bottles of you that we're going to spread and pour on other people, hoping that, they get a little spark, you know what I mean? And they start doing some tremendous work. So really want to just go ahead.
Do you have time for one more thing?
Yes, sir.
I want to say that I think that it's important for us to examine perspective. Maybe you're in a situation as a retired person or whatever age, and you're facing a lot of things that you didn't expect at this season in your life. Maybe things are difficult in your family or in your neighborhood. And you might want to find yourself being in a different context than what you are. But I want to say to you, perhaps you're there to be a change agent for your family or for your neighborhood. And rather than looking at the problems that exist, what would that be like if you weren't in it? What if your neighborhood didn't have you? Meaning, what if your neighborhood didn't have the positive reinforcement that you can bring? Sometimes we look at the situation and we can complain. But what we need to do instead is to say, okay, I'm here for a reason. What can I do to make things better? Thank you for that.
Man, that is so beautiful. Man, that is so beautiful. I mean, you couldn't have said it so, and those words are so touching. And I think that's something that we're going to leave this segment of our community conversation on that note. And we are really encouraging our community to just where you are, to get involved, to really prospectively, like he was just saying, man, it is so important, man, to really, really say that as long as you are breathing, you are a child of the Creator. You are a child of God. And our assignments are to help one another. You know, when you think about the rent that we pay, on this plane called Earth is our service to one another. Thank you so much for spending time.
What a privilege, what a joy
Thank you
to
so
be here
much.
today, really.
Again, this is Community Conversation. I'm Hubert Naeem Roberts. Again, you can reach me at mentorroberts@gmail.com. My phone number is 810-394-4105. Again, we have this program the first and the third Saturday of each month. Closing out, Monday we will be at Eagle's Nest, greeting our wonderful, our brilliant, our magnificent children at 8:15. Those of you that are listening, we love for you to share it with anybody in the community, any adults to come out to celebrate and value our children. Be at Eagle's Nest Monday morning at 8 o'clock. The children get off the bus at 8:15. We are practicing social distancing. We are using our masks. Again, we're not hugging the kids like we were. But again, what we're trying to do is celebrate our children and let them know they are the greatest. They are the greatest on this earth, and we got to do all we can because they are our future. We thank you, and we thank you again, my brother.
My privilege.
All right.
Really.
Thank you, our community.